Welcome back. I'm joined now by Tom Costello. And Tom, what's a little bit unusual and different is you're not here to talk about yourself.
No,
Most of our guests
right.
are here to talk about themselves. But you're actually here to talk about your grandfather.
My great-grandfather, that's right.
Your great-grandfather, I beg your pardon. P.W. Costello.
Patrick W. Costello, that's right.
Tell us all about him.
Well, he's my favorite subject, so I'm happy to talk to him. And thank you for the invitation to come here and be able to do that.
It's our pleasure to have you here.
I never met him, but I feel like I know a lot about him because he was a very prolific artist here in Scranton. Most people probably would not know him because he died in 1935. 1866 he was born, he died in 1935, but he produced hundreds, literally hundreds of portraits and engrossings. And he, really came from nothing. He grew up as, in poverty here in Minooka. His father was a miner, and with little income. P.W. worked as a breaker boy to supplement his income. His mother died when he was only 2 years old.
Wow.
And his father took him to England for a few years to find work because it was a real hard time here economically. They came back, and he ended up in the mines as a breaker boy, and then left that and became a clerk in the city engineer's office. Did that for 9 years, went into politics. And
Really?
during that time, he did artwork, kind of as an aside, really, and then it became a source of income later.
So breaker boy, politician turned artist.
That's right, and restaurant owner, too. He owned a restaurant here, and in fact, it was right on Wyoming Avenue.
Was it really?
In the 200 block, right in the heart of the theater district. So he had a restaurant there, co-owned with a man named James Fleming. And the walls of the restaurant were lined with his drawings.
Is the restaurant, is the building still there?
No, it's torn down. It's a parking lot now.
Oh, that's too bad.
But at the time, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was the Frothingham Theater, was right there, 2 doors away from the restaurant. And in the other direction was the Academy of Music. Across the street was the Poli. And then over on Penn Avenue, there were several other theaters. So he was right in the heart of the theater district, and he drew a lot of actors and actresses, and he met a lot of them because they came into his restaurant.
And he ended up doing portrait work on
He did portrait work. Some of them sat for him. Others he drew from other drawings or oil paintings or photographs. And but his living was, he made his living by engrossing.
What is engrossing exactly?
That's a good question because a lot of people wouldn't be familiar with the term. They would know about modern calligraphy, the fancy writing and lettering that people do today. It's really kind of a lost art form in the way that he did it. There are only about 4 or 5 people that I know of nationally who do it now. But
really?
Basically engrossing, if you think of like a college diploma and the lettering that's on the diploma, it's really taking the word, and embellishing it. It really goes back to monastic times and medieval times when monks used, lettering to enhance the size of the lettering, used gold to illuminate it for sacred texts or liturgical texts. The idea was to try to bring out the importance and the, just to highlight it.
So it's really making more of an artistic image out of a word.
That's right. Simple alphabet. And it livens it up, by enlarging one letter, maybe the initial letter, and then doing a lot of ornamentation around it, scroll work and, ferns and maybe a lot of gold. Gold is really the best way to illuminate an engrossing.
And he actually did some engrossing work for the building that we're in right now.
That's right.
For the Oppenheim building.
That's right, the Oppenheim, yeah. Isaac Oppenheim was the founder and the owner of the Oppenheim store. Everybody here would know it as the Scranton Dry Goods.
Right.
And P.W. did an engrossing honoring Isaac Oppenheim in 1926. And it's basically done if you look at his work, he has certain trademark qualities. He used traditional lettering, like Old English lettering, and the Oppenheim engrossing has Old English lettering at the heading, and then it has other styles mixed throughout. It has like a brown tone, which is a little bit unusual. Usually he did them in gray tones, Payne's gray, and then sometimes he would use color. But that one is unique because it has a wash, what's called a wash. It's like a cloud-like effect behind the larger lettering, and that was a trademark of his work. In addition to the multiple font sizes and different lettering styles. So that was done in 26, and then 20 years later, coincidentally, his son, Joe, also an engrosser, did an engrossing honoring the same person, Oppenheim. It was done in color, and I have both of those. They're beautiful pieces of work, but kind of interesting that his son did one for the same guy, later.
And P.W. also did one for Dr. Isaiah Everhart.
That's right, yeah.
We all know as the founder of the Everhart Museum.
Right, he knew Everhart. He lived up near the park. He lived on Wheeler Avenue, 200 block, and he knew Everhart. And when they founded or dedicated the museum in 1908, he was there for that, and he was commissioned to do the engrossing. Now that piece is different from the Oppenheim in that the whole thing is done in Payne's gray. He used Payne's gray and then he would lighten it up using, Chinese white to get different colors. I mean, layers of, levels of gray.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between that and the Oppenheim engrossing is that it has a portrait of Oppenheim, Everhart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a drawing that's modeled after a large oil painting. Anyone who's been to the Everhart will see a huge painting of Everhart overhang. It's hung above the staircase.
Right on the
main
stairs. Yep,
staircase.
I know exactly the one you're talking about.
And that's the drawing that he used to do the portrait. And so P.W. mingled the engrossing talent with the portrait talent. He was a master illustrator and was known that way as an illustrator. And that, as I said, it's all done in Payne's gray with, again, use of washes and Old English lettering and lots of flourished letters. The first letters is a large letter R that's flourished, and that was another trademark of his work.
And onto his portrait work. And I love that he did combine his two talents and his two passions of engrossing and portraiture into one piece. But he did some portraits of some very famous actors, actresses at the time. As you said, thanks to his location right in the middle of the theater district.
Right. Well, yeah, he did the engrossing. I forgot to mention the engrossing work really touched every facet of the community here. He was doing work for politicians, for business people, athletes, or a couple famous athletes from Scranton, and businesses largely. But that's what he did the engrossing for, and then he would do the portrait to match that. The portrait work was really a hobby. He did the engrossing work mainly for his living, but the portrait work was a hobby, and he did hundreds of them. Not just actors and actresses. He also did presidents. He did, people that would be names like George Washington, Jefferson, Monroe. He did a lot of congressmen, Patrick Henry. But the stage people, I think, interested him because he liked theater.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, he was right in the heart of it.
Right.
So he probably went to a lot of plays. There was a lot of vaudeville coming through Scranton in those days, early part of the century. And one of them he did was a drawing of Ada Rehan, Irish actress who played the role of Catherine in The Taming of the Shrew. She was a well-known Shakespearean actress. And what P.W. would do is he would do them in pen, which gave a sharp detail to the drawing. And he used what's called a crosshatch style. And he used that to, shade and bring out the texture and contours in a face. With Catherine, with that drawing that he did of Ada Rehan, it shows the costuming, the costume that she was wearing in the part. So you can see the detail in the costume. He was a very good artist, not just a portrait artist, but generally drawing something like a costume or background. He was very good at that. And another one that he did was one of Laura Keane. Laura Keane was a British actress, and her claim to fame was that she was on stage the night that Lincoln was assassinated in Ford's Theater in 1865, April.
It's quite a claim to fame to have.
Yeah, she was the lead in Our American Cousin, and she was on stage at the time it happened, and they saw John Wilkes Booth jump to the stage and run out the back of the theater.
Wow.
So she was very well known. That's a rather simple drawing, but I started to get to it before with Ada Rehan in that drawing, and also with Laura Keane. He would do the drawing, and then he would color it with like a watercolor wash to give it some, additional, just spice it up a little bit.
Give it a little more life.
Right.
Yeah.
And most of his drawings are characterized with that like an umber tone or a rose-colored tone.
So, have there been or will there be any exhibitions of his work?
Yes. In fact, well, not anything planned right now, but I've been talking to several curators here in Scranton at Marywood and at the Hope Horn Gallery and the Everhart. And I'm hoping...
You've talked to Neshka up at the Everhart.
Yes.
I was going to suggest that you talked to Neshka.
Yeah,
I'm glad
I
you
did.
have.
Yeah, she was great. She was very interested in P.W. They did an exhibit back in 1968, and they combined his work with John Willard Wrought.
Okay.
He's a well-known landscape painter here, and they were close friends. And so I'd like to see P.W.'s work. I think it can stand on its own. I'd like to see it exhibited at some point. And there was one other drawing that I think you're going to show that I wanted to mention. And it's a drawing of a nun sitting at a window of a convent. And again, it's all done in Payne's gray. And this is unique because it's a scene. He did several of these. And it's just amazing. If you look at the detail of that drawing, you can see how by using Payne's gray, he could do a lot with light. I think he worked with, it's kind of like looking at photography. I'm a photographer, and I look at black and white photography very differently than I would color.
Oh, sure.
I see them as really different art forms. And I think he had a lot more versatility with the gray. So he drew this nun who was sitting at a window, and you get a real, good look at the detail of that, a beveled glass in the window. She's kind of lost in thought. It's kind of a meditative look on her face, but you can see the play of light and how you're drawn into the center of the drawing by the way he positions the chair and the nun's posture and the dresser and the tiles on the floor. It's really
it all takes you right in to look at her face.
Right, which is where you want the focus of the viewer. Right. Yeah, so that he did I've seen some of his bigger drawings, and that's one of the best ones.
Now we can go on for probably another 2 or 3 hours.
We could.
I'm sure we could. Unfortunately, TV doesn't give us that amount of time, but you have a lot more time coming up on March 7th.
Yes, in fact, I'm going to be giving a presentation to the Northeastern Pennsylvania Calligraphy Guild. And it's a relatively small group, I think about 20 or 30 people. And I'm going to give a 2-hour presentation showing a lot of his artwork. So I'll have, literally probably over 100 pieces of his art.
And that's open to the public?
Oh, it is, yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be at the Visual Arts Center at Marywood on the 7th of March at 7:30 to 9:30. And there is a contact. Nancy Davitt is the president of the calligraphy group, and people could call her to find out more details. But that's basically it.
Excellent. Tom, thank you for coming by today and
Yeah,
sharing
thank
some
you,
of this great
John.
information with us. Please come back and see us again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If you want to attend Tom's lecture, it's at Marywood University on Friday, March 7th from 7:30 to 9:30. For more information, call the phone number on your screen. For more information about P.W. Costello, you can visit Zenarian.com, which is on your screen, or just Google P.W. Costello. All the information you need is going to be out there. That's going to wrap it up for us here on Northeast Current. So until next time, I'm John Baldino. Thanks for spending part of your Saturday with us. Make it a good weekend.